Insiders leaked to the Guardian newspaper that the guy who's probably going to be the next Prime Minister is finally scared of Muslim voters. The resilience of our brothers and sisters in Gaza has helped us to clean up our political ruling classes. After Labour leader Keir Starmer's condemnable support for the genocidal maniacs in another country against the interests of his own people, he suffered the biggest crisis of his leadership to date. 56 of his MPs defied him and voted for a ceasefire, and 8 of his frontbenchers resigned over it. After years of ignoring and antagonising the Muslim community, the establishment elites in the Labour Party have gone into panic mode after realising that, wait a minute, these Muslims are getting a bit too powerful, and they've put plans in place to try and get back the support of Muslims. A frontbencher leaked to the Guardian newspaper, "We know we've lost the Muslim vote, and at the very least their trust. The Muslim community is no longer a safe voter base for us because of how we initially responded to the war. So we're just focused on damage control. We all know it." Why is this such a big deal? As Labour Party member and former parliamentary candidate Ali Malani said in this interview,
in 2019, 82% of registered Muslims voted for the Labour Party. Right, that's the largest voter bloc anywhere outside of teachers.
And because of how concentrated we are across the country and the electoral system that we're in, we can punch far above our weight. And that's where the new campaign, The Muslim Vote, comes in, that we're proud to be part of alongside broad swathes of the Muslim community. According to census data, there are more than 90 constituencies where potential Muslim voters make up more than 10% of the electorate. And there are dozens of seats where Muslim voters are more than the majority that the existing MP won by. In other words, that means Muslims could seat or unseat dozens of MPs in Parliament, and many more if we include our non-Muslim friends who are pro-ceasefire and pro-peace. Maybe even hundreds. But I say potential voters because we've got a lot of work to do to mobilize people. You see, this election is going to be about one thing: Gaza. Gaza has woken up millions of us, so hopefully it will be easier to mobilize us and our non-Muslim friends en masse. And with this new Muslim Vote campaign, we have the real possibility to get real people with real concerns into Parliament, instead of the usual conveyor belt establishment career politician types. What are we going to do? Punish. This election is about punishing those who didn't vote for even calling for a ceasefire, and rewarding those who did and took a principled stance, even if their party elites were against them. Why is this a genius strategy in the long term? Now, I don't want to sound like a naive youngster or something who might criticize their parents for voting Labour in the past. Those who were around 3, 4, 5 decades ago know why it was a no-brainer back then. But the mistake would be if we continue with a strategy that was created for a different time and context. You see, if you're a die-hard Labour supporter, no matter what, then the party is going to take your vote for granted. It's not going to do anything to get your vote because it thinks it already has it. And that's what the elite establishment of the Parliamentary Labour Party has been doing for many years. They didn't fear you, because true power isn't the ability to get someone in. True power is the ability to get someone out, to fire them, to hold them to account, to make them lose their seat and their job if they don't perform. This is why from the last few elections, we as a community have started moving towards more of a Muslim manifesto approach, to empower local communities, to invite all the candidates to a hustings event, for example, and say, here are our demands. How many are you going to agree to? How many are you going to agree to? How many are you going to agree to? This does two important things. Number one, it makes sure that you don't get a Boris Johnson type of situation. Years ago, Muslims pretty much unanimously threw their weight behind Ken Livingstone for London Mayor against Boris, and then Boris won. So he had an axe to grind ever since, and the rest is history. With a demands-led approach, the ball is in the candidates' court. If they only agree to 1 out of 10 demands, for example, then it's their fault they don't get elected or they don't get supported. And they can't blame us. So it's not personal, and the door's always open for improving the relationship in the future. Number two, it makes all the candidates compete for your votes, and by extension all of the parties. It's not a one election cycle thing, it's a multi-generational thing, many years, but eventually they all recognize that we need to take the Muslims' concerns seriously. And this is where Gaza comes in. It's catapulted this strategy for empowerment years ahead because the community has woken up and enjoys widespread support for peace for Palestine. More and more people are sick and tired of a hostile foreign regime having so much leverage on corruptible politicians, and they want a ceasefire now. They want Palestinians to have safety, security and dignity. But wait a minute, isn't that a bit short term? Just voting based on one issue? Where's the strategy in that? The strategy of punishing those who didn't vote for the ceasefire is still a genius move in the long term, in my opinion, because of several reasons. Firstly, the data suggests that Labour are going to win anyway, unless something totally crazy happens. But what we can do is significantly reduce the majority to send them a signal to take us seriously in the future without dealing a fatal blow in the short term. Remember what I said about power? Real power is to show you can remove someone from their seat. It will also ensure that a significant number of new local MPs that were elected instead of them have the moral courage to be on the right side of history, in spite of the corrupt lobbying pressure and all manner of dirty tactics used by foreign regimes to corrupt and hold leverage on politicians and public figures. That can only be healthy for our long-term political landscape. Secondly, it also helps shift the Overton window, that window of publicly expressible opinion. Yesterday it was crazy to label the Zionist occupation genocidal, for example. Today it's on trial at The Hague for it. You don't have to have a party in power in government to shift the Overton window. Remember UKIP? They had a grand total of 1 MP in Parliament in their heyday. But like them or loathe them, they were one cause among others that brought about a huge change in the political discourse and reality in the UK against the dominant ruling establishment. Brexit. These types of strategies end up making all types of people, including your opponents, dance to your tune. Like I said, it's not an immediate thing, but it's an important step in the right direction. And making this election into a one-issue election on Gaza will allow us to take a giant leap in that direction, inshallah. But wait, aren't there good people in the Labour Party too? What about them? Won't we be punishing them? Yes, there are many nice people in Labour, probably the majority, because there are 2 Labour parties. One is the establishment elites, the so-called Labour HQ, and the other Labour is the everyday member who has almost the same interests as most other people, including their views on Palestine. The beauty of punishing those who didn't support the ceasefire is that you're actually helping those who are genuine, real people within the Labour movement to strengthen their case to get rid of the corrupt elites that have been doing Israel's bidding. So this electoral punch in the nose to the party will help wake it up and act in the interests of everyday real people. If you don't, then those good people will just continue to be sidelined by the elite establishment types that just come off a conveyor belt from being indoctrinated in PPE and becoming various shades of the same empty vessel for hire to the highest paying lobbyist. It's important to note that we don't need to all be the same in order to be on the same side for justice. Some people might be in the Labour movement trying to recapture the soul of the party from the authoritarian elites, for example. Some people might even be in the Conservative Party trying to reduce their harm, their damage. Some people might be in a different party altogether or some independent. Good luck to anyone who's trying their best if we're all working for the same goal. Wait a minute, what if this campaign really does well and we end up getting a Tory government instead? Even if something miraculous happens and we do get another Tory government, so what? We've suffered 15 odd years of it already. If it means making a sacrifice in the short term to send a clear message and eventually clean up our political landscape, it's the least we could do, considering that our brothers and sisters in Palestine have been making the ultimate sacrifice for their dignity and self-esteem. So in conclusion, this year's election, with more and more people waking up to the potential power of the Muslim electorate, is a crossroads for us. Either we show some backbone, some principles, some self-respect and punish those that sided with Netanyahu and his cronies, exerting our power as a community to show that we are a force that needs to be respected, or we yield. We don't punish, and we potentially take our community backwards 2 decades and say, you know what, you can treat us however you like, carry on as you are, we'll just keep coming back to you, or we won't even bother turning up to threaten your seat anyway. Zionist lobbies have spent billions over the years, but all they have is money. We have people and values. We have a real opportunity now to get some real, genuine, uncorruptible people into Parliament. Might as well give it a try. So what's it going to be? Let me know what you think in the comments below. The exposing and cleaning up of our corrupted political classes is just one of the things we have Netanyahu to thank for. Click here to see the other 4 things that he's done for us.